Morning, and no doubt you heard Ali and Gabby, but news came through that Alexander Isak has really set the cat amongst the pigeons. It's all come through a quote from a tweet, I should say, from David Ornstein. I know David well. He's a highly respected journalist, works for The Athletic. About a couple of hours ago, Simon, Ornstein tells us Alexander Isak adamant he will not play for Newcastle again. Even if window closes without exit, the 25-year-old views that his Newcastle career is over and no wish to reintegrate. Club says he's not for sale, but exploring the market amid Liverpool interest, and the striker wants Liverpool. That was according to David Ornstein. Alex Crook has been reporting exactly the same thing. And now the place is in uproar. Now, it's my understanding that the squad, the Newcastle squad, the players and the staff haven't been in for a couple of days. They've had a couple of days off, and they're all in there later. I'll get your take on this later on, Simon, as how the ownership might view this. But it struck me that just a matter of months ago, I was up in the northeast on the occasion that Newcastle played Arsenal. It was a packed house, of course it is. It always is at Newcastle United. And the fans were in fine voice. And Alexander Isak that day scored the only goal of the game. And he spoke to me afterwards.
You know, I love it here, and I love playing in front of this crowd and these fans. And you know, we just want to keep winning. I just want to do good and keep scoring goals, and we will all be happy.
I love it here, and I love it in front of these fans. And he was talking to me just straight after the end of the game, and he was thrilled to have scored the only goal of the game. And now this, Isak adamant he will not play for Newcastle again. If you didn't hear Gabby on breakfast, he really let loose.
Wow.
I mean...
Wow. Who does he think he is, by the way?
Correct.
Like,
Correct.
Listen, I can have banter with Newcastle, but like, who do you think you are, mate?
Correct, mate.
Who do you think you are? Disgusting. What that club's done for you.
And by the way, have a think about this.
Jesus.
Have a think about this. If you're Liverpool, or you're Liverpool fans, is that the kind of person you want to be signing?
Real Madrid won him in 2 years when he's 27. He'll do the same to you.
Of course you will.
Wow.
Of course you will.
Ali, and the fact that Newcastle missed out on Sesko, they've got every right to say, listen, you're going nowhere. We've lost Callum Wilson. We can't get Wisher over the line yet as well. We're not going into the season. They've got Villa on Saturday. Who does this guy think he is? Like, you've had a fantastic season.
Yeah.
Settle down a bit, mate. If it doesn't suit the club, shut up. Get your boots on. Big season for Newcastle. Want to start the season well. Villa away, tough game. And now you're saying you're adamant you don't want to play. Like, what?
That's unbelievable.
Wow, that's why I'm up.
That was Gabby and Ali just a short time ago. So months ago, Isak standing with me at St James's Park. I love this place. He scored the only goal of the game. They beat Arsenal by a single goal to nil. Now reports that he's adamant he will not play for Newcastle again. Simon, my goodness, I cannot wait to hear you let go on this. How hardball can Newcastle now afford to be with Isak?
Well, in part, it's their own fault. The vacuum of leadership that seems to exist in Newcastle has created an entitlement in the player that they can trot out these platitudes about what they believe they had an understanding towards, or what gentleman's agreement, or what they were led to believe is now being reneged on, as a backdrop to suggesting they can behave as they want. If the leadership had been clear and specific and explicit to the player from the outset, and not allow it to be seeded in the player's mind and his representation that somehow or another they're going to achieve what they want, then we may still have a problem, but we might not quite have the same problem that we've got now. Gabby is right and wrong in equal measure. First of all, Isak doesn't owe the club anything. Isak signed for the club and he's played for the club and performed well for the club. So it's a partnership between the club and the player. The club didn't give him anything. The club gave him a contract and he played to his natural ability. So the idea that, you know, that look what Newcastle's done for him, what Newcastle would have done for him if he hadn't played very well would have been bugger all. That's what they've done for him. They'd be trying to send him out the door. But because he's done well for them and done his job, it's a Faustian pact. So the idea that look at what Newcastle have done for him, well, look what he's done for Newcastle. So I get the point there. The reality of the situation is very simple. We are talking about quotes that are not attributed to the players. We're talking about understandings from journalists, and I don't I do not suggest that David Ornstein doesn't know what he's talking about. He's a top journalist, and he probably will have been fed this, but we haven't got any direct quotes at this moment in time. So the player is using the media to funnel information through so that he can say, well, I didn't actually quite mean that when the time comes to pass.
Of course. No,
we know that these things will be resolved.
Yeah.
We have wars going on. We have countries in dispute. We have terrible situations around the world. And at some point, these things come to a resolution. And this will come to a resolution at some point. My hope for Newcastle is that they concentrate the mind of this player. What I'd like to see in situations like this is the unions do something meaningful for a change, like talk about the players' conduct and expectation of players and how they should play for their club. Because if a player is suggesting through the media, whichever media channel it is, that he's not going to play for the club again, then that shouldn't be something that should be allowed, because a contract has to mean something.
Right.
It's not about contracts being breached, like the guy that sued UEFA for the compensation clauses as a result of the Russian club that didn't want him anymore and then held his registration. And we've seen all the freedom of argument around contracts in recent times. This is a player that's got a 3-year contract with Newcastle United. And if Newcastle want to be a football club of significance, they have to control their own destiny.
So if you're Newcastle, are you calling Isak's bluff?
I am calling two parties bluff. I'm calling, if indeed bluff is expression, I would have said to Liverpool, and I would imagine there has to be had some conversation, you will pay this price or you will go away. It's really simple. You're not going to agitate. You can do as much as you want, and you can do it in a fashion that you believe is befitting of a big football club, but you're not going to get him for less than this. And you, son, are not going for less than that. So if they don't meet that expectation, you will do as you're told, in the same way that Marinakis filled the void. Whatever you may think about the idea, or it's very simple, Simon, to say what you would and wouldn't do because you did it 20 years ago. Well, it's just been done by Marinakis.
What, Morgan Gibbs-White?
Because he made clear in the player's mind and the player's representation and the idea that people were being inappropriate in their conduct. I will set you guys on fire unless you play properly with me and my football club.
Yeah.
Metaphorically speaking.
One of the key lines in this bombshell tweet from Ornstein, to my mind, is when the word reintegrate comes along. Has no wish to reintegrate.
Yes, but Jim,
if he has no wish to reintegrate, it's going to be a bloody hard job for Eddie and everybody else here.
But you just played a clip.
Get him back in.
People change their minds. People change their positions, and people change. They can adapt their shtick in the same way that you just played out a message from him at the time, which I imagine was pretty apt. I enjoy playing in front of this football club, football fans.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean he enjoys playing in front of his football fans for the rest of his natural born life, does it?
No, I know that, but we're talking about a few months ago.
So it's not.
If Liverpool weren't in big for him,
so it's not beyond the wit.
Would he be saying this? No, he wouldn't.
So it's not beyond the wit of man for him to change his position on the fact that he doesn't want to reintegrate if indeed he has the courage to actually say that out loud himself. Because he won't have the courage to say it out loud himself, because he'll realise that it's directly attributable to him and there's no road back from that. Right now, there's loads of room for road back for everybody.
Yeah.
There's loads of room for everybody to go, well, I never said this and he never said that, because no one's saying anything on the record.
Which, why now, Simon, should Liverpool increase their offer? Isak's doing the hard graft for them.
To a point. Depends how resolute Newcastle are and how significant a football club they think they are.
Do you know something? It took me back. And I think Isak's got to be careful, because it took me back to, I think it was 97, 98. I'd just gone to Sky. Pierre Van Hooijdonk, once of Celtic, then at Nottingham Forest. He was successful initially with Forest. He said he'd been told previously he could leave the club and that the club's owners had failed to deliver on their promises to him in regards to strengthening. Forest they played hardball, refused to allow him to be transfer listed again, but he went back over to Holland and trained with NEC Breda, virtually saying, "Tell me tell me when this is all sorted." It wasn't sorted, and the club won the day. He had to come back, and he played for them again. Not for long.
I would suggest,
but he had to come back.
I would suggest that the dynamics have changed. Players have got more control of their own destiny after 27 years after that event. But again, it goes
very similar situation.
It has a similar feel about it, because it's a player that doesn't want to play for a football club all of a sudden because he thinks there's an opportunity better for himself, and he's entitled to think that. As is Isak. What he's not entitled to do is down tools. Now, we constantly hear this ridiculous notion that agents want everything tied up. They want to know exactly where they stand. And now we live in a world where they can turn around and say out loud, we had an understanding, we had a gentleman's agreement. I've never heard so much crap and excuses made for not doing things properly or reworking and re-engineering the information to your own favour.
So answer me this. Who can afford to dig their heels in hardest now? The club or the player?
It depends what you mean by fault. Do you really think that the Saudis give a monkeys about 150 million quid? They don't. They're not running the football club, it would appear.
Well,
Now-
they do when there's PSR.
Well, they do and they don't right now, because ultimately they're being very compliant with the football establishment. But notwithstanding that, I don't think they're actively involved in running the club on a day-to-day basis. I'll be interested to see who is running it. Darren Eales is the chief executive, very capable operator. He stepped out due to ill health. You've got other people in the mix. The sporting director that a year ago everyone was saying was the problem is now everyone saying could have been the solution.
Right,
So make
Paul
your mind
Mitchell's
up.
gone.
Yeah,
You're
but a year
right.
ago he was a problem.
And you're saying what Alan Shearer's saying. Shearer's saying, I don't know why they haven't appointed anyone yet, or if that has hindered them in the transfer market, because I'm not inside the club, but from outside the club, it's not a good look. It's a mess. It begs the question, who's making the big decisions? Now, if a decision has to be made, we don't know who's going to make it. What decision would you make?
If I was in situ,
Right.
but I wouldn't have let it get away from me the way that's gotten away from them. If you start the dynamic very clearly in the way that potentially others do, which is very clear to the player. First of all, we don't have an understanding. Second of all, you're not going to do this. Third of all, it's on our terms. End of discussion. Get your head around it. You shut your mouth, agent, and understand your position in the equation, and we'll see where it falls out. If Newcastle, if Liverpool want to buy you, they'll pay 150 million quid. If they don't pay 150 million quid, you're not going. Right, so you be clear on that.
And you're not going, and you're confident you can reintegrate into the squad.
But what they've done, Jim, in most things in life, if you allow somebody to create their own narrative, they'll start to believe their own version of the truth, which is now that there's a sense of entitlement that actually we should be able to move. We've been told this, and